Yeah! All right, guys, I'll give you the intro in a minute, but Crowbar, hold on. All right, guys. Hey, guys. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. 1039 LI News Radio, 94.1 The Bud in Orlando, Florida, and the 94 countries we're in, WMAPradio.com. And I've been getting into these guys, man. I got an awesome guest for you tonight. But just one more verse here from Crowbar. This is awesome. This is one more verse. These guys are like, I'll tell you about it in a minute. Hold on. Listen to this, guys. Be right back with John Costello in a minute. So, guys, that's Crowbar. This is a band that's been around for so many years, man. The guys are probably about 240, 260 each. Now they're all gray. I mean, I know I'm getting older and stuff, but I think these guys still rock. They still kick ass. That's Crowbar. It's when the planets collide. But, let me turn this off. Hold on. Let me turn this off. Guys, sometimes you're met with your past. And it's good or bad. Now, recently, I ran into somebody from my past who was always a huge success when I knew him. This is when I was involved with Johnny Fratto back in Beverly Hills in California. There's a gentleman, his name is John Costello. We all called him Johnny. Johnny Fratto loved him. He was a smart guy. I mean, this is the guy was like, he could have been in GQ. He was like a good-looking guy, and he's a real smart dude. And I met him a bunch of occasions. I mean, because those guys did everything together. Johnny Jr., and I don't think there's anybody in the family I didn't meet. And this guy was he was a real smart guy. And Johnny had this gift of saying, I mean, he can make people look amazing, but when he talked about Johnny Costello, you knew that it was real because this guy backed it up. I mean, there's so many things. I can go through his resume for years, but guys, with no further ado, I want to bring my guest on tonight. My guest tonight is the author of this great new book, which is getting these amazing reviews in Amazon. It's called Executive Hoodlum, negotiating on the corner of Main and Mean. And you can get that at executivehoodlum.com or amazon.com. Guys, my honor, my privilege to bring to WMAP, to bring to 1039 and 94.1 The Bud. This is Mr. Johnny Costello. Johnny, how are you today, buddy?
Geez, KC, it's been a long time. I mean, I sure that was some introduction. I hope I live up to that. My head's so big, I don't know if I can stay on the phone that long. But thanks for that introduction. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on your show. It's a great honor.
Well, it's an honor for me to have you on, man. After so many years, I couldn't believe that I found your publicist, and then we hooked up. And it was just kind of like talking to you the other day was like old times, man. Johnny loved you. And if people don't know who Johnny Fratto was, why don't you say a couple things about him? Because he was somebody who was bigger than life.
Sure, and I think everybody knows that, Johnny, about 2 years ago, passed away of, I believe it was throat cancer. Unfortunately, we were very close, as I am close to the whole Fratto family. Now, Johnny was well known, namely for being the son of Louis Cockeyed Fratto, who worked directly for Al Capone, and he had you could find a lot of stuff with him on YouTube of, testifying in front of all these organized crime commissions, being questioned by, Attorney General Bobby Kennedy.
The key pfeffer.
Long history.
Right.
Yeah. But Johnny, great guy, great sales guy, really, really quick on his feet, well known in his area, and once again, he had a charisma and a charm about him that you're aware of, obviously, because of his numerous appearances on different mediums. But Johnny, overall good guy. Used to see him all the time. I still am in contact with the family, and it was very sad to see how quickly he passed.
Yeah, and you were telling me that for people out there, because we still get a lot of the Stern fans will come and listen. But what I didn't know is that he just went in for a routine checkup. Is that what it was?
Yeah, he went in for a routine checkup, and they said, "Sorry, you have stage 4 cancer." I mean, that's but honestly, I got to say this: the days I known Johnny, he always had that little bit of a cough to him, and you know how he sat on his balcony and smoked cigarette after cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
I think he had that feeling like he was very scared to actually go to the doctor for years because he was scared of what they might tell him.
Right.
And that's the kind of guy he was. But I know a lot of guys in the neighborhood are just like that.
Well, I know, Johnny, that when you left that balcony, I used to be there all day. I mean, my address was that address for years, and everything. The guy did so much for me. He gave me a home out there, and a place to be. I mean, I have nothing but great things to say about Johnny, and I miss him terribly. But after you left, he'd say, "Case, that's a smart guy." How long were you with Johnny? How long did you guys work together?
Well, probably for a better part of a decade. Now, there's stories in my books that date back to some of the things he said to me that ironically came up, decades later. But when Johnny actually came to me to say, "Hey, go meet some people in Beverly Hills," I didn't know what he was talking about until I realized it was an informal interview to be in his reality show. So it was quite the surprise when I walk into the studio. I'm looking at, I was with Sonny D, and I'm like, "What the hell are we doing here?" We were arguing, and these people were just watching Sonny and I argue. And Johnny walks in with Maxis here and turns around, and the two guys that were watching us argue before Johnny came in said, "They're perfect." I go, "They're perfect for what?" They watched us arguing, and that was our interview. Watching me argue with Sonny. He says, "They're perfect." And the argument was my sister. He was dating my younger sister, my half-sister, and my youngest half-sister, who was just on a bunch of talk shows with Antoinette Giancana, the Sam Giancana's daughter, basically, airing some of the family laundry that's in the book. So quite ironic that was my interview, that me arguing about, "Hey, don't say anything to my sister you don't want to hear on TV." So it was one of those situations.
Johnny, how did he get away with that, man? How did he get away with, living that? I think it was that episode where he took me aside and he said, "Case, do you know how much this suit weighs?" I said, "Johnny, I'm wearing a T-shirt and jeans, man. I don't know anything about it." He goes, "This it weighs less than 8 ounces." He was. They used to call him Johnny Diamonds.
Yeah, he was. He liked to flash the jewelry. I mean, like I said, he get money, and he couldn't wait to get out there and buy a new Rolex or customize something with more diamonds on it. He was quite charismatic. I mean, I'm sure you probably get those jewelers that do it for free just by smiling at them and whispering honey in their ears. You know what I mean? Because that's the kind of guy he was.
Now, Johnny, you're a guy that, as you know, for Johnny Frauder to take me aside and say, that is a smart guy right there, meaning that's a guy that I need. That's a guy that's very valuable to me. You came up with your own challenges. I mean, you're a guy that excelled in so many different fields, but yet, was it hard to get out of the shadow of, hey, this guy is just a thug. He's not the genius that he is. He's not the CEO. I mean, you give talks to CEOs. You know what I mean? I mean, you're.
Oh, yeah. And Johnny knew my father too, and the whole family knew my father and his reputation in Chicago. Because, as you're aware, my father was a mob associate, and he had a history with a lot of the guys that Johnny knew, and he knew about the situation that my father had put me in when I was in a sit down where my father actually stole $250,000 worth of mob money. And the way they found out was on a fluke. And Johnny knew all about this. And so when the reporter, and his name's John Bulldog Drummond, you can look it up, him and Bill Curtis from A&E fame, did an expose in sometime in 1986 explaining how my father was taking down all these local businessmen for money on this deal. And turns out it was the same thing that the mob guys were giving him money for. So when they saw that, the reporters were insinuating that my father was working with the mob to shake down these people as if he was giving them a tribute of sorts, when in fact he was doing the same thing to the guys in Chicago, which led to a very scary sit down where as a 24-year-old I'm sitting in there with some of the guys that names you only read about in the paper.
Yeah, let's not name them, but people out there could imagine. So you were brought up early in this. I mean, when did the fear pass?
And the point being is, after being in that meeting and getting out of that intact, trust me, going into a boardroom with any CEOs, it pales in the comparison of the risk. Worst they can do, I walk out of there, they fire me. The worst I can do is I don't walk out at all.
Yeah, right. Exactly, man. I mean, growing up, but you grew up around this, and it wasn't an easy life. People think that if you grow up in this life, it's easy and it's chosen for you. But just when you were 10 years old, you saw something that was horrible. I don't know if you want to give specifics here, but somebody very close to you saw there was some violence, and that. Oh
yeah. Sure, I can elaborate that. In fact, it took me a while, even writing the book, that, when I wrote about that, it was very tough for me. I mean, tears coming to my eyes and stuff like that, having to relive that. I did see my father did, just prior to my 10th birthday, literally beat my mother into a coma. And it didn't look like she was going to survive. And, we were pulled out and we were in foster homes and such. But what made matters worse is that, when she did eventually recover, probably took, I think it was 3 weeks before she actually recovered and was in shape and was conscious, that she had lost so much blood, they had given her multiple blood transfusions, and one of them was tainted with hepatitis B. So when she got out, she wasn't the same person, and her immune system was depressed, and then for the next 3 years, I watched her slowly, drink herself to death, which was obviously unfortunate. It was tough because my grandfather on my mother's side, when I was in my late teens, handed me an envelope, and I knew what was in it, and I didn't want to open it. It was the original police report detailing her injuries in the hospital. So for many years I didn't look at it, and I only looked at it after my father passed away. So it was one of those tough things that I read it. And it was just kind of a hard pill to swallow.
I can imagine. I can imagine. And then it wasn't too much longer. Then you saw another person in your family shot.
Well, actually, it was a month before. In August of 1974, my Uncle Paul was shot to death in his home in the north side of Chicago. And the interesting part was, his estranged wife came out to California to hide because her alleged lover shot him to death with the kids in the house. Oh, and God. I never forget this, but this kind of tells you that the family I'm from, I'm sitting there, I don't know, maybe 12, 13 years old, and I'm listening to my aunt describe in detail how the murder went down. And I'm thinking to myself, is this really an appropriate conversation for a 13-year-old? Yeah. I mean, even at that time, I realized how odd this whole situation was. So it was kind of creepy, but hey, it's that's your family, and when you're accustomed to it, you think it's normal until you go see a normal family, then you realize how screwed up it is.
Yeah, Johnny, what was it like? I mean, I'm sure you met, kids in school. You had like a sleepover party or something like that, and you'd have popcorn watching movies or something like that. I mean, were any of these other kids subjected to what you were? I mean, did you have to hide this?
Well, it's super interesting you say that, because there was an incident at my high school, because it was right across the street from the elementary school where my half-brothers and sisters lived. Now, remember, after my mother passed away, I was in a foster home for a while. Then my father went to get us out, and we went to his new house, but we didn't know he had a new wife, new kids, and everything. So it was kind of culture shock for us, just, really taking us out of our environment. Didn't have many slumber parties, namely because I went to 9 schools in 10 years.
Right.
So it wasn't easy to make a friend. But the incident in school, which exposed the school to how my father was, is, and this is something I probably never told you about, but it's in the book. One of the teachers was swearing at one of the high school teachers, who was also a coach, was swearing at one of the high school kids, just as my father's cruising down the street with his arm out the window, like on your typical Dago going out there looking out the window. And he's going to pick up the younger kids from the grammar school, which is right across the street. He hears this guy yelling profanity to one of the high school kids. And, of course, my father, oh, what are you doing talking, one of those things, right?
Uh-huh.
So whatever he said didn't work. My father gets out of the car, grabs him by the throat, and starts roughing him up.
Oh, my God.
My brother walks up like, what are you doing? My father says, you know this guy? My brother was a freshman at the time.
You know this
and he goes,
guy?
Yeah, I know him. He goes, that's my health teacher. So, I kid you not, Casey, my father walked into the principal's office using 10 times worse profanity than this guy even uttered. And he's yelling at this guy, and it's a small school. I could hear my father's voice thundering down the hall, and everybody's looking at me and goes, sounds like your father. I'm like, oh, my God, it is. But remember that the principal of the school is a priest. He's a Carmelite priest.
Oh, my God.
Very, sworn to poverty, is docile as they come. My father apparently grabs, and the thing I heard that it's funny, but it's not funny. He said, if you don't straighten out these blankety-blank teachers, the next time you talk to this blankety-blank, you'll be reading his last blankety-blank right.
Oh, my God.
So, great line, funny line, but...
Yeah, but as a kid, excuse me for laughing, but the funniest thing that I've ever heard, I think, in my life was telling your brother, do you know this guy?
Yeah.
That's my health teacher.
Yeah, and ironic, once again, it was funny but then after that time, the cat was out of the bag, and everybody's asking, then I was the butt of all jokes, like, hey, what if Johnny's father had 10 apples and so-and-so took away 10, his neighbor took away 5 apples, what would you have? He goes, you'd have a dead neighbor and all 10 apples. That kind of stuff would go around, the kids busting your chops.
Yeah, Johnny. Most kids, when their parents come to school, they're worried about, oh no, what is my mom? What is my dad? What are they wearing? Are the kids going to make fun of them? Are they going to say something stupid or something like that? I mean, because at that age, you're so impressionable and you're worried about what everybody says. But then when your old man comes in and he does this performance, either you were the coolest kid in the school afterwards, or people were afraid of you. Or, I don't know, but tell me what it was like after that happened.
Well,
did nobody touch you or what?
Yeah, well, actually, it was a little of both. Now, the high school I went to was a small Catholic high school, and I got along with all the kids there. And I just come out of public schools. I went my first 2 years to private, then I went to a myriad of different public schools and junior highs until I ended up in high school. Then I went to this school, and I made a lot of friends really fast. They were all Irish and Italian kids mostly, so I could relate on that level. But they were really hard. It was very easy to make friends at that school, I'll say. And that was one of the crossroads that a lot of those kids that were my friends really took me through a tough time because, I was able to escape by being on sports teams in high school to stay away from my, the family life. But, also remember, The Godfather had just come out, 3-4 years earlier because this was the 70s. So, the whole mob thing was still on everybody's mind, so you could see how that would resonate. And a lot of kids it was so funny, a lot of kids would like to come to my house because there's always something going on. Arguments, fighting, controversy, and I like to go to their house because it was peaceful and tranquil.
Because it was quiet. Wow, guys.
Yeah, it's quiet. I'm, they're trying to get a little excitement. I'm trying to get a little peace. So it was, it was quite the paradox.
You know what, guys? Hey, listen, we are going to take a quick break right now, but we will be right back with Johnny Costello. John Costello's book. It's called Executive Hoodlum, Negotiating at the Corner of Main and Mean. And you guys can get it if you go to www.executivehoodlum.com or just go to Amazon.com. When we come back, we're going to talk more with the great John Costello, my old friend. And we'll be right back here on 103.9 LI News Radio, 94.1 The Bud, the King of Rock in Orlando, Florida, and 94 countries here at WMAPradio.com. And if you guys can, tune in on twitch.tv/WMAP Radio. John, stick with me, all right? Be right back.
You got it.